Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Coast News. And let's just get straight into the news today. Obviously, this is the first one that I've actually made since theme parks are fully reopened for the 2022 season. And obviously, there's been a lot of news, as always, from theme parks, rides and attractions all over the globe. So let's just get straight into the news today. Our top story for tonight: Pantheon has officially opened at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. And obviously, like the previous three Busch Gardens roller coasters that have opened within the last month, this is obviously a moment in history. Because basically, if you didn't know, I've mentioned it quite a lot in my recent coastal news videos, but basically, a few years ago, SeaWorld had plans. They announced back in 2019 to open 5 new roller coasters in each SeaWorld theme park in 2020. This included Texas Stingray at SeaWorld San Antonio, Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego, Icebreaker at SeaWorld Orlando, Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, and Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. And obviously, in February, Texas Stingray opened at SeaWorld San Antonio. The others were planned to open later that year, but obviously COVID hit, everything just went crazy. It was they weren't going to be able to open those rides this season. So obviously they managed to just about open Texas Stingray because that opened in February just before lockdown. But the other 4 were delayed until 2021. When 2021 came, they delayed it until 2022 because of financial issues in the aftermath of the previous lockdowns of COVID. SeaWorld was struggling financially towards the end of 2020 and start of last season. But obviously they delayed Pantheon, Icebreaker, Iron Gwazi and Emperor to 2022. They announced Icebreaker was going to open in February of 2022, which it already has. It opened on the 18th of February. They announced the Iron Gwazi, Emperor and Pantheon would open in March that year. Iron Gwazi opened on the 11th of March, 2 weeks ago. Emperor opened on the 12th of March, like literally one day later. And today, Pantheon has opened officially to the public at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in Virginia. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically, Pantheon is an Intamin Blitz coaster, a new generation Intamin Blitz coaster. Obviously, it's opened at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. It's themed to 5 different Roman gods. I think it's in the Italian themed area of the park near Tempesto and Apollo's chariot, and that's opened. It's one of the most unique coasters that SeaWorld have ever built. It's got a multi-pass launch. It's got 4 launches altogether. Obviously the first one is kind of like the slow launch where it goes into an inversion and a couple of outward banking airtime hills, which is amazing. And then obviously it goes into the second launch, which is actually over an airtime hill, so that makes it even more unique. The launch is literally built onto an airtime hill, which goes it's supposed to go over the 178 foot tall top hat, which has a 95-degree drop, so it's beyond vertical as well. But obviously the first of the second launch, if that makes any sense, isn't fast enough to make it over the top hat, so it rolls backwards, but there's a switch track that actually changes so that when you're going backwards, you launch slightly faster up a vertical spike backwards. You go back down into the maximum speed of 75 or 76 miles an hour, which makes it the world's fastest multi-launch coaster, so that's the world record as well. And it makes it over the top hat, completes the rest of the layout. It goes over the Rhine River as well. The bottom of the 95-degree drop into a turn goes over the Rhine River, into an outward banking airtime hill. There's a lot of outward banking airtime, into a 0G stall and a few twists and turns, another airtime hill until it goes into the brakes. And I've noticed in this ride, Intamin have taken notes from RMC, because obviously RMC do a lot of rides with outward banking elements and inversions. So this definitely is very unique. And it's the first one, I think it's the first Intamin Blitz coaster to have a backwards launch, so that's even more unique. But obviously this isn't the first one SeaWorld have built, because obviously they opened Icebreaker last month, which has a multi-pass launch, but that's built by Premier Rides. This is built by Intamin. and so obviously, I'd imagine it's gotten a lot of great reception. It had like a pass holder preview for a couple of weeks, and obviously it's officially open today. So it's great to see that all four, well actually all five SeaWorld coasters that were planned for 2020 have now officially opened. This is the last one that they were planning to open, and it's now open, so that is incredible. And as for what Intamin have got planned next for their coasters, whether they're going to build any more coasters with these sort of launches, well, they've actually got a coaster planned for Park Asterix that's supposed to be opening next year. What sort of planning phase it's at the moment, I don't know, because it was supposed to open in 2021 alongside Conda at Walibi, Belgium. But obviously delays multiple times. Last couple of years they've got some like planning applications and things like that. Whether they started building it yet, I'd hope so, because they want it to open next year. But until then, we've got Pantheon, which is in America, and it's an incredible one-of-a-kind ride. It's one of the most anticipated rides from last year and 2020. But now it's officially opened, and it looks incredible. Also in the news today, Thorpe Park have officially opened for the 2022 season. And obviously we've waited for this day for a long time. Thorpe Park, they've got an amazing year ahead of them. They've got the most events that they've ever had in a single season. Because obviously the last couple of years Thorpe Park have added a lot more events on. And the future for Thorpe Park actually looks really bright. Obviously they've reopened officially today. They've got a new ride actually open for this year called High Striker. Although it's not exactly new because it's basically Lumber Jump relocated from Old Town. They've moved it to Amity Cove next to Storm Surge. And the reason they've done that is obviously to make way for Project Exodus, which, if the plans get approved, Project Exodus will be the UK's tallest coaster. And I think the fastest one as well. It's like 130 kilometres an hour. I'm not sure what that is in miles per hour, but it could be faster than Stealth, which is the current fastest in the UK. But obviously today, I think today, they've opened High Striker, which is relocated Lumber Jump, which is like a little frog hopper ride. Next to Storm Surge, it's obviously got a massive refurbishment and obviously renamed to High Striker. So that's a great new addition for them. Until then, obviously, after that, they've got, like I said earlier, loads of new events for this season. They've got Mardi Gras, which is obviously inspired from the one at Alton Towers, coming in May until June, and this July until August they've got the Carnival event, which we've not seen at any theme parks yet, which looks also stunning and very fun and festive event. And obviously they've got Oktoberfest, which is returning for September, and Fright Nights, which looks to be quite different than previous seasons, because this Fright Nights, well, obviously when they announced it, this says that Fright Nights this season is going to be running from the 1st until the 31st of October. And they've not done that in previous seasons before. Normally they'd have it start on like the 8th or 7th of October or somewhere around that time. Run it for a couple of days, then they'd not have the event on for about a week or 5 days, and then they'd start again until the 31st of October. This year, it's going to run for the entire month non-stop. That is amazing, and weirdly, they only celebrated the 20th anniversary of Fright Nights last year. They're now celebrating 21 years of Fear. I don't know why, but there you go. They've made a new logo for it, which has a key that says 21 on it, and it could end towards new scare attractions that they've got for this year. So that's very interesting. Obviously, Thorpe Park, they're not like the other Merlin parks where they have events during the winter, during the close season, because Thorpe Park, they don't really have anything to open during the close season. They've got loads of rides. Probably the closest thing they've got is the Sunken Gardens, but that is basically like Alton Towers Gardens, but much smaller, and you could probably walk around the entirety of the Sunken Gardens in about 5 minutes. So they're not really going to open that during the close season. But obviously, they've officially reopened for this season. They've obviously refurbished a few rides. They've removed one of the water slides to make way for a new playground as well. So that's very interesting. The Infinity Bar and Kitchen has been renamed and rethemed to the Vibes Bar and Kitchen. Not sure why they've done that, but there you go. I think it's to fit with the new sort of era of Thorpe Park, even though they literally only rethemed it to the Infinity Bar and Kitchen in like 2020, I think it were. So I kind of wish they kept it as Infinity Bar and Kitchen. I remember when it. This is making me feel old, but I remember when it used to be called Finn's Bar and Grill. That was a very long time ago. Obviously, they've got done a few bit of refurbishment around the park, and it's officially reopened for this season. And obviously, I can't wait to go to Thorpe Park in August, and I'll be filming that for you. That'll actually be during the carnival event, so that's going to be amazing. So just stay tuned for that. In other news today, Flamingo Land have released the first teaser for their upcoming roller coaster Inversion in over 2 years, since the last one was in 2020. And this is a moment in history. I keep saying that a lot, a moment in history. Obviously, as you know, if you've seen my recent coaster news videos, you'll know that they've been doing a lot of work on around the ride recently. They've pretty much 95% painted the track to its planned colour scheme. There's only like a little bit towards the top of the lift hill that's left to be repainted. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we've already done the repaint. But obviously, today they've released the first ever teaser for the rides in about 2 years. The last one they did was like a photo of the ride's lift hill just as the track was being finished, covered in loads of mists to make it look very atmospheric. That was the last teaser that they did. Obviously, since then we've had 3 lockdowns, which basically just halted the ride's construction. Obviously the first lockdown was in March until July, then it was the second one from November until December, then it was the third one, which was from January of 2021 until April. Since then, up until a couple of months ago actually, about a month ago, not really been much. They've delayed the ride twice. But recently, they've started work on it again, and a lot of work as well. They've repainted 95% of the track from its original colour scheme of red track and yellow supports to its planned colour scheme, which they submitted on the planning application, to silver track and black supports. And obviously, they've pretty much done most of that apart from one little section of track and one of the support structures that needs to be repainted left. Other than that, they've added a lot of the fences around the area. They've done some concrete work, landscaping. They've done a lot of work around the station. This is just like probably the most anticipation that we've had for the ride ever. It's like, was that the right words? They've done a lot of it. It's looking 100, like probably 99, no, 100% likely that it could open this year, especially since today they've released their first ever teaser in a long time. I mean, fair enough, the photo that they've used, as you can see, it's an old photo because it's when the ride was painted red, but it's still a sign that they are definitely planning for this ride to open this season, because they've even put a tagline above it saying "coming soon." So it's definitely looking very, very, very likely that the ride could open this year, and if it does, Flamingo Land will hopefully just get back on track with their operations, because since 2020, since COVID hit, their operations haven't exactly been great. But obviously, since then, they've the rides have just closed randomly because they've not had a lot of staff on because of the furlough scheme, which finished last season. Obviously, the ride's been breaking down. Last time I visited Flamingo Land was in October 2020. We only managed to get on 2 rides, which were Velocity and the Ferris wheel in Dino Stone Park. Obviously, it was chucking it down with rain, but that wasn't Flamingo Land's fault. Couldn't really see the animals because they would have all been in the shelters, and a lot of the rides were broken down. So we were only there for a couple of hours, but that's kind of how bad the operations have gotten at Flamingo Land, and it was like that during 2021. But this year they appear to be getting back on track. Obviously, it's not all good this year because they've removed the cable cars, which I actually remember going on back in 2019. Those cable cars actually used to be the old ones from Alton Towers, and it's been completely demolished now. It's just reached the end of its service life because it's that old. I think it's the one that Alton Towers used before they got the new ones installed in like the 60s and 70s, I think it were. That's how old it was. Obviously, it's been completely demolished now, so the skyline of Flamingo Land is probably going to be a bit different than it was before. But obviously, and other than that, they've got this new coaster opening, which they're saying is going to be their flagship attraction. And I really cannot wait for it. It's going to be better than Colossus at Thorpe Park. So it's just going to be absolutely incredible. I wouldn't be surprised if they announce a name and opening date soon. They're saying that they wanted to open in summer this year. So we'll just have to wait and see. And finally, in the news today, Europa Park have revealed new details about their upcoming roller coaster for 2023. And this has kind of just been in the works for a couple of years now. Well, it's been talked about for a few years, but obviously they've only announced new details earlier this week. Didn't really know what kind of ride it's going to be, but obviously they've announced recently there's going to be a Mack Rides Big Dipper roller coaster, so something like Lost Gravity at Wallaby Hollands. And it's going to be in the Croatia-themed area of the park, and it's opening next year. Now, obviously, Europa Park, they are actually owned and operated by Mack Rides themselves. It's pretty much like Mack Rides' testing ground for new and different rides. Now, obviously, the Big Dipper coaster, we've seen that only 2 other times in the world. We've seen that at Wallaby Holland with Lost Gravity, which was the first one. And there was another one that opened somewhere, I can't remember where it were, in 2019 called Dynamite. And there's a third one opening at Europa Park next year. Obviously, the only details that they built is going to be manufactured by Mack Rides. It's going to be a Big Dipper coaster, and it's going to be located in the Croatia area of the park. So obviously Europa Park are like a proper themed day out. Well, more than that, because they've got a lot of resorts. And they've got a water park as well, so they're turning it into a proper full resort experience. They've even got their own version of Spaceship Earth, but instead of having a dark ride in there, they've got a roller coaster in there. I think it's the Eurosat Can coaster or something like that. I don't know. I think it is, which has had a refurbishment recently. Obviously, the future, as always, is definitely very bright for Europa Park because they're getting this new Mack Rides Big Dipper coaster, and it's going to be a very unique experience. Obviously, I heard that Europa Park is one of the best theme parks in the world, and this is just going to add to their lineup. So, exciting times ahead, and I really cannot wait for it. So yeah, that is it for this week's episode of Coaster News. If you really enjoyed it, then please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below if you'd like to see the next video. Bye!